Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, founder and CEO at recruiting firm Riderflex. If you enjoyed today's guest interview, please give it a like and be sure to subscribe to the Riderflex podcast. And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
Try the #1 marketing platform for small business. Everything you need from design to marketing to CRM. Learn more at marketing360.com. Marketing 360. Fuel your brand.
Okay. So Kendra, first of all, I don't want to butcher your last name. So why don't you pronounce it correctly for the listeners?
So it's Reichenau.
Reichenau.
Yes.
Is that German?
It's
or what?
German. My husband's father was from Germany.
I see. Okay. That's what I figured. I was looking it up and of course I did the whole, pronounce.com and I'm trying to, I was like, I'll just ask her.
You can also call me, one of the main reasons why I took my husband's name, because I was 32 when I got married. And I had been my maiden name for a long time, was because a lot of people pronounce it as right now. And I thought Kendra right now was very fitting for me and my personality.
Yes, that's good
More
marketing.
so than my husband. So I was like, well, I guess I should take it. Kendra right now is good.
Interesting. Well, let's see. So are you in Minnesota today? Is that where the corporate office is?
I am. I'm in Minneapolis. That's where we live.
Minneapolis. Okay. All right. And talk to me about where you're from, where you grew up, mom, dad, early family life, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. My parents came to America in 1963 with $1,000.
Really?
My father is British. My mother's Australian. They came over with green cards through Australia, there was a good relationship between the U.S. and Australia back then. And so they came with green cards. My father had traveled throughout America in his 20s and wanted to come back because he felt like America was the land of opportunity and was not as caught up in class systems the way it was in London and in England. And so he felt there was just greater chance of him to make it if he worked hard.
Gotcha.
My parents worked together for the first 25 years. My father was a small business owner. He was a photographer and my mom ran the gallery. Oh. And so my sister and I are kind of second generation immigrants. And I think back then, our parents wanted us to be doctors or lawyers or accountants, right? And neither of us have done that. But it is interesting that, my sister also has a very serious career. And I think there's something about being, second generation where you see your parents working really hard and kind of figuring it out on their own, not having family to rely on, or even neither of my parents went to college, education to follow up on. And so I think both of us, have a drive that probably we got from our parents, but also then we have ourselves. So, and my father really believed in education. So he was a huge proponent of that and encouraged us, both to, go to high school and college. In fact, my sister has her PhD.
Oh,
yeah.
How about that? Okay.
Wow. And so, yeah, I know she's another one.
So one daughter's a doctor and the other one's a CEO. Wow. That's pretty good.
My sister runs a global environmental consulting company. Yeah.
Wow. Impressive for both of you. Congratulations. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I don't know about impressive, but she's impressive. That's for sure. But yeah, go ahead.
Your folks still alive? Are they still?
Yes. My father went back to France and he lives there. And my mom still lives in the Bay Area, which is where I grew up.
I see. Were you guys already out of the house and grown before they split?
Yeah, they split after 40 years, which is quite. Yes. That's a different podcast. Okay.
I'm always fascinated when I meet older people. Like I got some friends, 56-year-old friends and or whatever. And I'm getting divorced. I'm like, you've been married for 40 years. Like really? Like now? Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway. Okay. So you didn't have any grandparents then in the U.S. when you were a kid then, right? Nobody.
Nope.
Actually. Okay.
No. In fact, no. Yeah.
How did they meet in the first place? Was he traveling in Australia?
No, my father was in London and my mom was with her family living for a year in London.
Oh, I see.
And they happened to live, my grandmother on my Australian side had rented a house across the street from my father's parents. And I guess the story goes, it snowed in London, which was very rare. And my mom was trying to shovel the walk. And my dad walked by because he was at his parents and offered to share the shovel or something. And so from there, they met and married in like 6 months and came to America. So it was quite brave, really, and almost impulsive. I don't know.
And what kind of kid were you? Were you a good teenager? Were you wild? Were you like,
Yeah, I was kind of a good kid, but I was also independent. So I've been working since I was 10. Okay. I've always loved working. I didn't love school. My first job was at Joanne's Coffee Roasting Company, which roasted coffee beans pre-Starbucks, which kind of starts to date me.
You got to put that on your LinkedIn. You got to add that to your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, exactly. And I would measure the beans and put them in a bag and then dust the bag off and then put them all lined up so people could, grab their pound of beans or whatever. And that was my first job at 10.
How about
and that? My father was a photographer, as I said, and so I would sit on the stool and help. He would warm up his cameras to make sure they were always working because there was no digital back then, right? And, I used to pose and I used to do local ads, kids' clothing ads that he would do. And I used to organize all the wedding albums. So he would take all these photos and then we would organize them in order of how we wanted, and we'd pick the best ones. And so at a young age, I would learn how to pick the best photo, chronologically put it in the photo album, number all the albums, and I would get $1 a book. And then I learned how to retouch them so that they looked better in the proofs in the book. So I've been working forever.
All right. Why political science in college? What was the goal there?
Because my father wanted me to be a lawyer.
Oh, I see.
That goes back to all right. You need to be a lawyer. That's the right career for you. You will be successful. That's what people in America do.
I see. That's where that came from. And then but then what? Yeah, walk us through your career a little bit. Your early career.
My early career. So
you had some retail. You had some retail in there. I love that.
I did. So I worked through college. So I worked for Nordstrom and Neiman Marcus through college.
Cool.
I had a client book set up so that I could work the summers, Thanksgiving and Christmas, and make quite a bit of money. Back then, your customers were very loyal to you, and so you had a book, you had all their information, you'd call them. It was in the era of, if you remember, Tom Peters and Nordstrom's would accept back, Goodyear tires. And, it was that whole kind of era of when the customer was right and you did everything to make the customer happy.
Yes.
And so I benefited from that in terms of commission. And then my father went into bankruptcy when I was 20, and I had to live at home for a year and kind of go to community college and save up enough money to pay for my final year at school. And so I worked for Neiman Marcus for 18 months and was the assistant manager of what's now called designer sportswear. And I learned how to put on trunk shows, and I had 19 people reporting into me and teaching them how to work the client book. And it was a good year. Sometimes your worst experiences are your best ones. And that was probably one of my worst experiences. And I lucked out. I went to a very wonderful girls' junior high and high school called Castellea. It was very difficult to get into back then. It was also very expensive, and they bartered. My father bartered so I could go there. He was the school photographer.
I was just about to say that. He's like, he probably did something with photos for him or something.
Yeah, he did all the school photographs so that I could attend, which I'm sure no private school would do that today, especially in Castellea today. Today I think it's $55,000 a year to go. It's super crazy. I know, as a high school. but it kind of changed my life. It was a real gift. And when I got out of college, I had no idea what I wanted to do.
Really?
But no, they didn't prep you back then. You didn't do internships back then. There wasn't the internet. The only people that came on campus was like Ernst & Young accounting or something. And I didn't want to be an accountant. So I decided, this just tells you how naive and stupid I was, but I decided to call the Gap because I wanted to work for the Gap Corporation because it was in San Francisco and I had moved home. I'm from San Francisco. I'm from the Bay Area.
And you knew retail, you knew clothing.
I knew retail, I knew markets, I knew Nordstrom. I had actually designed my own clothes in high school. I had sold them at boutiques. I mean, I was super creative back then.
Okay, cool.
And very entrepreneurial. So I decided I was going to call up Gap. And I was going to call the HR department and ask them if they had any jobs. So I called the 1-800 number and I asked them to put me through to recruiting. And they did. And a woman named Christine Casey says, "This is Christine Casey." She answered the phone, which of course the whole thing sounds hilarious. And I said, "Oh, are you Christine Casey from Castellea?" And she says, "Well, yes, I am. Who are you?"
Boom. Wow.
I know, right? I said, "Well, I was a 7th grader when you were a senior. Do you remember me?"
Perfect. She's like, "No, I don't remember you, but still, that's cool. We went to the same school."
So we're alumni, and us sisters, us Casti girls, we stick together. So that was the beginning of how I learned about the Gap Merchandise Training Program.
How about that?
And how I got in. So
very cool.
So I created my own luck by having a decent memory back then.
But hey, but good for the listeners right there. You were aggressive, right? You're like, "Hey, I'm calling people. I'm not just gonna. I'm aggressive here. I'm gonna get in there." Okay, good for you.
I wanted it, and I think there's a funny story even about the interview process. I interviewed with 10. This is for a training role, right? I mean, this is like the bottom of the barrel. Yeah. And they said I had to interview with 10 people. Every senior vice president, I mean, it's ridiculous, across Gap, Banana Republic, Gap Kids. I mean, super crazy. And one of the DMs told me afterwards, she said, "Kendra, I thought you wanted this job so badly." She said, "At one point, I thought you were going to reach across the table and shake me." I told them I'd work for free. I told them it was going to change my life. And
that's great.
The reality was, you know what it did?
Yeah. I mean,
the world, it's created my whole career. Was getting into that program. I didn't know what merchandising was back then. Now we know merchandising degrees exist, but back then they didn't exist. I thought to myself, my God, we get paid for deciding what people wear. Are you kidding? Yep. We get paid to talk about clothes all day long. Like, this has got to be the best thing ever. We traveled all over the world. We learned how to produce goods, source goods.
Did you get to fly on the jet? Did you get to fly on the company jet at any point? Nice. I remember flying with the entourage visits and all that.
I mean, back then it was run by Mickey Drexler, right?
Yes.
And he knew the name, and he walked the halls every week. And, he would walk in the door and he'd say, "Kendra, what's going on? Teach me something." And, the calls would go around. He'd say, "Mickey's on the floor. He'll be there in 5 minutes." And then you'd call the next person, right? And you'd jump out of your desk. You'd grab your selling report, you'd go into the closet, you'd put the clothes up on the wall, because we all had grids, and then you made sure you knew your numbers. You asked me my numbers today, I know my numbers.
Yeah, he could be a tough character.
He was very tough, but he groomed you. You knew your business. You were, in case you ran into the elevator, you had to always have something in your head around what you were going to tell Mickey if you ran into him.
Yeah, good point. What's the little boutique company down in Austin he recently got involved with?
Alex Mill.
Is that the name of it?
Well, he's doing he's actually running his son's company, Alex Mill, now.
Oh, okay. It was something else. Anyway,
he was doing. I think that he was on the board of a fitness company. I think Outdoor Voices.
Oh, okay. I can't believe he's still going, man. I mean,
he'll be merchandising till he dies.
So that's a great experience for you, though. So Gap took off, and then, but somehow now how did you make the jump into consulting? How did you get out of product retail into consulting? How'd that happen?
So I have, I was at Ann Taylor.
Yeah.
McKinsey was in there, and they were doing a lot of consulting for us. And
of course, and McKinsey people, they're always looking for talent. They're like little hawks.
Well, they're looking for talent, but at that point, they weren't looking for me. They were very frustrated with the CEO at the time because she was not embracing what McKinsey wanted to do. And so there was this huge issue between the CEO, the board, and McKinsey.
All right.
And one of the managers at McKinsey kind of pulled me aside and she said, you merchants think you know everything and you don't. And you're not that smart. And I was like, oh, okay. And it kind of went in the back of my head. And when I left, I got to Taylor at a tough time. Sally, the CEO, was definitely struggling. And so when I left, I thought to myself, if I want to learn how to run a company, I need to understand how it works. And I didn't want to get my I didn't want to get my MBA. I didn't love going to school. And so I figured that if I could get into consulting, I could get paid to learn.
True.
And that worked in my financial model because whatever I owned was what I had earned myself. So I figured out how to get into consulting. And so my father's accountant knew of someone at KPMG Consulting. KPMG had just bought a little boutique retail firm called Webb & Shirley. And Webb & Shirley were hired to do all the transformation work within the limited organization. Kind of moving to a different design product development model that we had gone through at Gap with McKinsey.
Don't tell me you got to work with Nikki Drexler and you met Les Wexner and you worked with both of them personally.
Well, I got to meet Grace. I worked for Grace Nichols and Kay Isaacson for 18 months. Yes. So Grace is, yes, I did.
Sorry,
and the consultant on the project, the manager that I worked for 2 years was Jerry Stritsky. Wow. Who is the guy who, really took REI to a whole new level. Oh no, I have worked with some unbelievable talent. I mean, there's no question.
Yes. Sorry, I didn't mean to get your flow off of there, but you've been, that's great.
I mean, I've worked with Mickey, I've worked with Grace, I've worked with Jerry, I've worked with Scott Olivet.
All good stuff.
Oakley. I've worked for Mr. Kohler.
Yeah, good stuff. Yes. Yeah.
Tough, but good stuff.
Yeah.
Some real legends.
I mean, all great leaders are a little bit tough in some areas. I mean, you have to be. You can't just be a little teddy bear walking around all the time.
I mean, they want that now, so you have to really tame yourself. But you just have to be resilient.
Yeah.
And you have to be tenacious, right? I mean, you just have to. If you get yelled at, you just have to get back up again and do it again, right?
Isn't it so true? Isn't it so true? Like back in the late 80s and through the 90s, right? I mean, you could be yelled at, you could be crushed in meetings. And today, and then in today's world, when I talk, there's some millennials get their feelings hurt over little things. I'm like, I'm just thinking to myself,
Sally Frame-Cassix. So Sally Frame-Cassix really, in her prime, was a legend, and she was in Ann Taylor when I was there. She threw a hanger at me once in front of 100 people because she hated the item that I showed her that 30 days before she loved. I was with a VP. I won't mention her name from Limited Brands, and we were doing the Entourage tour. And I'll never forget this. We were, there's a pack of 8 people walking around into the retail stores, right? And anyway, this retail manager started crying during the conversation because she was super stressed out or whatever. Yeah. Right.
We walked out of the store and that VP, she looks over at me. She says, "Get rid of her. She's weak. She's weak." I was like, wow. I mean, people don't know. It was a different world back then.
It was a different world.
It was a different world. Anyway, we got off track. So, okay. So your career back and forth really between consulting, retail, and then you started hitting some turnaround stuff. Somewhere in there you started to go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I think what happens is I really like learning. I think there's a couple of things. I love to work and I love learning.
Yeah, good.
And I think the consulting part of me loves always being exposed to new clients, new problems, new solutions. It's intense, it's grindy, it's long hours, but you're being really stimulated as you go because you're constantly learning more and more. What I don't love about consulting all the time is that you don't own the results. And what's exciting about being in the business is, you own the results, good or bad, right? I mean, sales are the truth. I love that expression. And so as I got, kind of up in my career, as I worked at things, and I should be honest, like, not everything has come easy to me. Learning how to really understand the financials has been a grind for me, and I have had to work at it. I have found people to help me with it. I have asked people to spend time with me. You can't be good at everything.
No.
And so I'm candid about what I'm good at, and I'm candid at what I'm not good at, and I seek out others to make me better.
Wonderful.
And I think knowing yourself is really important, and just being okay with who you are and leaning into what you're good at, and then surrounding yourself with talent or people or mentors or friends or whatever it is to round out the part you're not so good at, to make you good at it, not everything, but holistically good, is really important. And I think being okay with that is the earlier you can be okay with knowing what you need to work on and or what you need to get help with, the better you'll be.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah. And it's great to hear a CEO be humble in that respect and speak that way, right? Because so many young CEOs, they're still they have this fear that people are going to think they don't know what they're doing, so they overcompensate for that by acting like they know everything, and they don't listen enough, and they don't ask for enough help, and that gets them in trouble super quick.
Totally, gets you into trouble. I mean, it's impossible, right? It's like knowing everything is impossible. Working for perfection is impossible. I mean, it's not realistic. So I think what happened, and I think you can read about this statistically. I think because it is harder to become a female, business unit president or CEO, is the really, really great jobs usually you don't sometimes always interview for, right? So I think women
Did it happen to you? Did it happen to you in your career?
I think you tend to take the riskier jobs, because you want to get into that next level. But I think that's how I got into these turnarounds, because now I've realized I've done so many of these turnarounds, I might as well lean in and say, I'm really good at turnarounds. Right? So now
talk about needing to know the numbers. If you're in turnaround, it's like, holy cow. Especially if there's PE money involved, and they're like, hey, Kendra.
But then you've got their really good talent to help you crunch it out.
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
Right. And that goes back to being comfortable enough to saying, hey, you two, I need you.
What was your first big kind of success story? We can't touch on every, you have, by the way, great career, and you've had a ton of accomplishments, but what's your first big win on a turnaround?
I think my first, I think the one that is most exciting for me is probably the Kula Bar one, because that was my first PE-backed standalone CEO role, where when I got there,
Ship was on fire. Ship was on fire.
Yeah. And the board didn't know. The board wasn't getting along. So I had to learn, there wasn't a cash flow model. We didn't have any line of credit. we didn't have barely enough money to make payroll. There was $1 million of bills not even on the books. I love
that. I always love it when you go down to accounting with a bill or something like, hey, why this vendor's calling me saying we owe him $200,000, and it's like nowhere. It's nowhere logged anywhere.
It was crazy. In fact, the AP woman who was outside my office, her phone rang all day long. And finally, I'd been there about a week. And I walked over to her, I said, Brenda, who's calling you all the time? And she says to me, oh, it's all the vendors. And she opens up these drawers, and in it are
Checks. Checks
she
that never were mailed.
She said, we haven't been paying our bills, and they were in this drawer. And I was like, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? Anyway, the good news is though,
it's so good.
As
so
once
good.
you've gone,
we could do a whole episode on just that turnaround.
We could, because there's so much I can't even tell you. But
what? By the way, now let me just ask you real quick: are you married with kids at this time during that turnaround? Are you married?
Oh yeah.
So
I've been married. I met my husband consulting.
Okay, so you go home and you tell your husband, you're like, oh my God, this is, I don't know what I've done.
Totally. But he's really, so I think because I've worked with my husband, that's how I met him. I would say we are each other's greatest fans.
Okay. So he's like,
my
you can
husband's
do it.
Amazing. I think my husband's amazing. He could not be more supportive of me.
That's
right.
Cool.
And so we know what the other one does well. We know how to support the other one. And he's actually good at some things that I'm not so good at. And I can really help him with some things. And so we can really support the other one. And it makes a big difference having a fan.
Was he good at cooking and cleaning and taking care of the kids at that time? Because you probably didn't see him for 6 months during the turnaround.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a help, and we are fortunate enough we can hire some help when we need it.
That's good. That's good. So
and we only have one child, so that was
all right.
Yeah.
All right. So this place is. By the way, can you tell is it in here? What was the PE firm? Can you mention that, or is it super private?
Oh yeah, it was LFE. It was two PE firms. It was LFE and Avon, and then there was a founder.
How long had the PE money been in before they brought
9 years?
Oh,
and they had to put an extra amount in.
Oh my God! Okay, so they're already on pins and needles before you even get there.
Yeah. But the good news is, probably my greatest success is 22 months later, we had a very successful transaction.
How about that? Wow.
And I never.
Wow.
It was a big deal. I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would know how to hire an investment banker, even what an investment banker is. What does it mean to send out the book or tell the story or do the management presentations?
That's great experience. That is wonderful.
It's
experience.
Incredible, right?
That was huge for you. Huge moment.
Huge.
Yep. Was that did you get was that a nice payday right there? Was that hey, we're going to pay off?
It was, they'd already had two other CEOs in the role who honestly did better than I did in the deal because
Doesn't that suck? You want to call them up and be like, hey, bro.
You think they would have thanked me, right?
Yeah, seriously.
Seriously. But no, because I think they were so upset that they had been previously fired.
All right. So you didn't get retirement money out of that, but it was a wonderful moment.
You know what?
It was a huge.
I've never taken a job for the money.
Okay. That's good to know. But
it's never usually my primary driver. It needs to be enough. I don't want to say I'm not, but I'm not. I
hear you. Yeah.
Love the work. Yeah. Money doesn't really make you happy.
So that was a great job on that. Congratulations. And then you what? You're like, I'm going to do some consulting for a while myself, take some time off, chill.
Yeah, I did. Then I stayed with the new person for another 2.5 years. We doubled the size of the company while I was there.
Can I just, for the listeners' benefit and knowledge and learning, is that because you had a ride along package when they?
No.
What? Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Impressive.
I really loved, I loved the company. I loved the people. I loved the mission of it.
Okay.
But then it was time, and then I was fortunate enough to become kind of a part-time operating partner, working for another PE firm to help them look at deals. So I've now sat on both sides of the table.
Love it.
And that was a thrill.
Love it. Great experience.
Great experience. I'm the only female there, and there's I just never thought I could do these things, right?
Can I ask you? Can we pause right there? And we don't have to get into the whole.
I mean, I'm
male,
not traditional. If you looked at me, I don't look like a CEO. I don't dress like a CEO.
I don't know. You talk like one now.
I might speak like one, but if you saw me walking down the street, you wouldn't say, oh, she look, I'm definitely not, blue suit and pumps. You know what I'm saying? Did
it bother you back then to be the only female sitting in a room full of like 10 guys? Was that a thing? Did it bother you at all? Did it matter?
To me, I loved it.
Okay. Yeah.
So in consulting, when I was at KPMG Arthur Andersen, I was often the only female.
Was that for you? Was that a pride factor? Was that like hey, I feel
a little bit. I felt like,
okay.
I can hang with the boys. I can hang with the boys. Oakley was very male dominated. I loved working at Oakley. I get along with it. I'm not as, I just either like people or I don't like people, but I don't have a huge, I mean, I've definitely, we could all sit here and whine about how I've been, treated or not treated. Right. But I don't let it.
Has it gotten better over the years with men in general? Have we, men are pigs in general, right? Most of us,
we really are.
We're just crocodiles.
I think there's some stupid ones. Like, I think the few that are really stupid kind of ruin it for the rest.
That's a good point. Has it gotten better or no? Like since back in the early 90s with comments from men, has it gotten better or are we still just not doing very good?
I think I don't know because I have figured out how to navigate and not even like, I don't drink. I rarely go to events that involve drinking.
So that's probably helped a ton. So at happy hour, at the convention, at the annual convention, you're not down at the hotel bar. I
haven't done that for years.
Okay. Well, that's definitely helped
because I think stupid things happen
at
those things. And so I probably after the Gap days, I stopped doing all of that.
Okay. So let's take a pause right there for the listeners. Yeah. This is a really good tip for an aspiring executive. I think, and this is for men and women both.
Yes.
And I would definitely agree with Kendra on this. Once you are in a high enough leadership role, let's call it, let's say VP or above, and you got a bunch of people reporting to you. When you go to these annual conferences or these annual events, you have really got to be careful. Even if you do like to drink and have a little fun, and that's what you always did when you were younger in your career, you got to be really conservative and careful at these things. These events are not the place for you to go down as an executive leader and mix with all the younger associates and get hammered because bad things are going to happen.
They just do. Bad things happen. And I think,
yes.
So I couldn't comment if it was better or worse. I think it's better, but I also really don't put myself in situations where I'm not even in the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. That's a great advice. Just don't put yourself in a situation. Okay. So then what happened? Let me guess. Somebody at a PE firm taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, Heartland America, come do this.
Come help. Yeah, exactly. So I'm doing that now. It's been good.
Were you like, hey, listen, before I say yes, can I see the books? I want to see all the books. Send me the financials and the real books.
So here's one other thing I would say is even if you see the books, you need to really get in there. The forecasts are probably not always accurate.
No.
And the reporting.
Yeah, it depends on if it's self-reporting or audited.
I just think, I think it is, do you like the people? Do you like the firm? Do you like who you're working with? Do you think there's opportunities? And
was this a PE firm you had already worked with before, or
no? This is a different group. But
can you speak to the ownership of Heartland now? What's the ownership makeup, or no? Or is it? I know it's private.
Yeah, it's three investors. It's a smaller firm. It's three gentlemen who are investors, but they're.
Oh, I see. Are they all from the?
They have their own funds. They individually have their own funds, and then they invest together. So they're very successful gentlemen.
Original family members are not involved. Original founders are all gone or whatever.
No, they're gone. Yeah.
Okay.
They're gone.
Well, at least you're not dealing with that. There's no family members sprinkled in the office.
Well, there are actually 2 of the son-in-laws still work here, and they're great.
But they don't have ownership.
They don't have ownership.
Okay. So it's the 3. You got 3 investors.
I have 3 investors. Yes.
Okay. That's the board, so to speak.
That's the board. It's 3 investors and me. Yeah.
And okay, good. Now this time you negotiated for a big equity package. I know you did.
But you have to do the work.
You have to do the work. So you've been there, what, a year? You've been there a year?
Yeah, just a year. Yeah, it's been good.
You're still there. It's not.
I'm still here. I'm still here. I mean, obviously COVID's made it challenging and supply chains made it tough. And I mean, it's just, I think what's nice about working with other business people is there's just a pragmatic realism about how, what is going on with the economy and where we sit and where we're at. And that's, very supportive and helpful is having a group of people that, have a firm understanding of what is going on.
Will you do me a favor for the listeners? Now's probably a good time. Can you give the overview of Heartland America in your own words? I mean, for people that hadn't heard of it, and quite honestly, before our interview, I mean, I think I had heard of Heartland America, but in my head, and I'm in my head, I was getting ready for your interview. I'm like, now what do they sell? I think they sell. And I went to the website.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of niche. It's a little bit niche. It's a catalog. It's mostly a catalog business. So we send out over 15 million catalogs a year. Okay. It's an older customer that
15 a year.
15 million a year.
Oh, 15. Oh, sorry. How many catalogs do you launch?
15 million catalogs a year. Yeah.
One a year? One launch a year?
No, one a month.
Okay. All right. One a month. All right. Sorry. Go ahead. So a catalog business.
That's okay. Sorry about if I wasn't clear. Sorry about that.
That's right.
And we have an older customer. They live in rural America where there's not great Wi-Fi. And so the web, they don't really like the web. They like to flip through the catalog and
what percentage of your customer orders from paper catalog versus the web? Do you know?
Oh yeah, I know. 80%. 80 to 90, depending on the month. 80 to 90% through the catalog.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me just hold on. I gotta let that register in my brain.
They like to talk to us on the phone.
Seriously. So 80 or 90% of your orders are either from the phone or from the paper catalog. Only 10% of your orders are coming online or coming from that is crazy. That's wild.
Yeah. There's actually quite a few companies that are built that way.
Okay. All right.
People like to go through the book. They mark it and then they call us and, we have items. I mean, we sell product throughout the entire book. It's not just, the front cover. They systematically go through it and then they like to talk to us on the phone, ask questions.
How about that?
Yeah.
That is okay. That is wild. All right. So general merchandise, I mean, you got a little bit of everything here.
Yeah, we have a little bit of, we try and find really good values. We try to find products that are kind of a 4-star quality or better.
Okay. So it's quality, not budget products.
It's a combo. It's definitely a combo. And we have good quality products. We have less than a 3% return rate.
Wow. All right.
Right. That's good.
So it's not like a Marshall's TJ Maxx concept. You're not buying clothes. You're not buying.
It's because it's more of a male dominated catalog. We're 60% male, which is high. And we sell garden and tools and garage. We sell a lot of refurbished products that have been refurbished by the manufacturer or an approved third party. So, you're kind of buying good quality products that aren't going into landfill, that are good value.
Okay. And your buyers, are they just hunting? We're just
hunting for deals.
Hunting deals. Okay.
Hunting deals. And then we evaluate them. We have a way of evaluating the products to make sure they're good, of our quality standard. And that's new. So this whole kind of quality value proposition has been one of the things we've been working on since I got here, which is why our returns have dropped to, so low.
That's a good number. That's a good number. How the heck does a company like this compete with Amazon? How do you do that? I don't know.
Well, have you been on Amazon lately?
Every day.
I mean, their prices actually have gone up. Their shipping costs have gone up, but I don't think it's hard to compete with Amazon right now.
Yeah.
It's really hard. But this customer wouldn't spend the $150 on Prime.
I see.
So are you a Prime customer? I mean, I think it also
Yes.
depends, where I live, if I order something on Amazon, I get it within an hour, right? I'm in the heart of a city. I'm in the heart of a hub. This customer's more rural. They wouldn't even get the same Amazon experience that depending where you live, what you might get.
I see. Okay.
And
very
Amazon
good.
doesn't ever answer the phone.
That's true. And I did see that on your website. Your website specifically says, call us. We want to talk to you or something.
Yeah,
That's what I read that. I read that.
And we hire nice people that like to talk on the phone.
Okay. So it's so interesting you bring that up. So when I was looking at the website, my first reaction was, how do they compete with Amazon? But then as I was scrolling the website, I saw it where it's like, hey, call us. And I was like, wow, when's the last time you saw a website actually say call? It's okay to call us.
Right. So I think that, part of it is about, I see my mom who's gotten older. My mom's going to be 77, 78.
Yeah.
There's times she has questions before she buys. It's not easy to return things for her anymore. So she wants to buy the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
So she wants to ask some questions.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
And all of a sudden that starts to become a competitive advantage because our people know about our products. We answer the phone. We're kind. We're patient. I'm not looking at the clock saying you've got to get your call down by, 5 more seconds.
Now you got me. Okay. Now you got me hooked, Kendra. I was wondering, I'm like, hi, what is the niche here? Like you said, and now I see and coincidentally, I was just back in Oklahoma visiting my 78-year-old mother and trying to show her where the rewind button was on an old DVD player was hard.
Yeah.
And you're right. She wants to just call somebody and am I ordering the right thing? You're right. Yeah, you're totally right. There is a need for that. I think you're servicing a need there. I see that now.
I think we are, I know everyone always wants to talk about Gen X and Gen Z and, millennial, but I mean, there is that older customer and they're still around and they have money to spend.
That's true. Oh, that's true. Okay.
And
that's true.
So, I think there is some opportunity there.
How many employees you got? 100 and something?
Probably around 125 right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. How much time did the PE firm give? No, what's not a PE firm. How much time did the three people get? No, I'm just joking. Did they say, hey, 1 year, fix this?
Oh no, they're great. They've been really great. We've had a couple of hiccups since I've joined. So they're great. Incredibly supportive. The chair is great. And honestly, it's one of the best boards I've worked with.
Did they give you some cash to try to fix it, or they just?
Yeah, they're definitely investing in the company. Okay. There's really I really have no complaints.
That's the tough thing for turnarounds, right? If a CEO gets a call for a turnaround, it's a hell of a lot easier if you're coming in and going, okay, well, ERP system needs to be replaced. This needs to be replaced. All these things need to be replaced, and I can't do that if I don't have any cash.
Right.
So, okay. All right. Very good. Let's switch gears here as we're headed towards wrap up. We got a few minutes left.
Okay.
I noticed you're pretty careful with your social media. You're pretty careful. Your LinkedIn is all business. You don't mess around. What's that?
I'm buttoned up.
Yeah, you are. I was trying to find some stuff. Let me find something on here she's commented on that might be a little.
No, you'll never see me do that.
I didn't find none. I didn't find anything.
No, I will like something. I might say great job, but you will never, ever see me comment on any social platform.
Yeah, I think it's
anything even slightly controversial.
I am in 100% agreement, and I just did a podcast episode on an entire subject recently, and I was challenged. I had people call me and, well, no, as a podcast host and as the CEO for Riderflex, I don't even know if you know this, but Riderflex, our day job, we're a recruiting firm, right? And we have a podcast.
Yep.
And so they're like, well, as a recruiting firm CEO and as a podcast, you need to be, just picking a side on this and this. I'm like, no, I don't think so. No. And I encourage other CEOs. I'm like, man, I have friends that they'll comment on stuff and I'll call them up. I'll be like, what are you doing? Like, what are you trying to piss off half your customer base? Like, what's wrong with you? What are you doing?
Well, I think it depends. It depends on your company, who owns it, and what you stand for. Okay.
True.
This is not my company. So I'm an employee. Yeah. And two, my guess is with my customer base, I'm pretty sure I have I have all political views at my organization.
Yeah,
and
you have all
I don't really feel like it's my right to push my personal values on other people.
Yep.
I also believe very strongly that if we could focus on the 70% that we all agreed on versus the 30% or 20% that we don't agree on, if we could make the words cooperation, collaboration, and cooperation sexy again, I would be happy. So,
it's so true.
It's just we're just so polar. I mean, I'm just embarrassed on both sides. So I try not to. I like to, know the way we behave is just crazy now. So I just feel like we have to lead by example. And if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all, right? I
mean, oh man, there's this great line from. Of all people, Mike Tyson quote where he said something like, social media has made everybody comfortable enough to say mean things without having to be worried about getting punched in the face.
Right. Totally. He's right. I mean, you would never say those things to someone's face, and you wouldn't be allowed to. You'd be fired. I mean,
that too.
It's so nutty how people behave. Now, personally, on my social media, I do post some personal things, but it's because I've moved and I want to stay connected to my friends. But my group is very small, right?
Yeah. I think it's wise and it's good for the listeners. And I know some people listening to this interview will disagree because I do get some of those comments, but overwhelmingly, the CEOs, a vast majority of the CEOs I've interviewed on this podcast say exactly what you just said, which is no, not a good idea to go down that road. And I am in total agreement. And if you're listening to this show and you're an aspiring executive, if you're a young director out there that wants to be a CEO someday, I caution you to be careful about putting stuff out that could come back to haunt you 5-6 years later.
Well, not even that. I'll tell you my husband is a partner at Accenture. And he's in financial services, and they have hired either through Accenture or at US Bank, they've hired interns that due to posting inappropriately on social media lost their jobs because the banks have such strict rules on what you can do. Yep. And these kids are done.
Yep.
It's done. These banks hire third-party services to vet you, and once you post inappropriately, you're out. And so that's kind of a shame, but it's the way it is. So if you're young, I'd be very careful about what you post that goes on at parties or commentary, because it can really prevent you from potentially having a great job opportunity that is you lose. We know my husband knows a number, unfortunately, of things that have happened to kids.
Yep, I totally agree. I have one last question for you as we're almost out of time, but I want to emphasize a point you made a second ago. You said something like you're embarrassed by how we act as a country on social, and I am too. So, sometimes I tell my wife, I'll see something, I'm like, what world are we living in, man? This is crazy. And I told her the other day, I was like, if aliens from another planet only saw our social media and the news and didn't actually come here, they would think we're a bunch of crazy people.
Forget aliens. Try people from other countries.
Yeah.
My neighbor's kid moved to New Zealand before COVID, and he's been stuck there due to COVID. And so my neighbor spoke to his son the other day, and he said, when are you coming home? And he said, come home. He's like, why would I come home? And he went to reel off all these stats that from his perspective,
Yeah.
he's like, I'm not coming back. Now that was his perspective. And but he was like, between this and this and this, you've got to be kidding.
What world are we living in? So good, really good stuff, Kendra. Really good stuff. What I'm going to ask you one last question. What a wonderful career so far. Your track record is really great. And I love the balance of the early retail executive stuff. And then you got the consulting in there, and then the training on the numbers, and then the turnaround. Awesome.
Thank you.
If you had to define now, you said you had one child, you're married. So let's set aside the husband and kid for a second.
Okay.
Aside from your family, aside from your immediate family, if you had to define your core purpose in life moving forward, what does that sound like? Your core purpose?
I can tell you some things that are important to me. How was that? Doing nonprofit board work is really important to me.
Okay.
I've been on one or two nonprofit boards probably for the last, 10, 15 years.
Very satisfying, gratifying, rewarding.
Satisfying. And I think if you want to get onto boards, or you want to network, or you want mentorship, getting onto working committees that then get you onto a board of a topic that you are truly and authentically passionate about is some of the best work you can do. And if you are young, I would encourage you to find time to give back, because it will help you find people that you share a common passion with, that some of the older members might end up becoming great mentors for you.
Good.
And I believe giving back is really, really important in some capacity.
Good stuff.
And I also think mentoring is important, whether you are being mentored or you are the mentee. And as you change, it flips. But I think networking is important. I think mentoring is important. I think being mentored is important.
Yes.
And I try to spend a decent amount of time finding time for both. I'm currently advising 2 other companies right now. I do it at night or on the weekends. I find an hour here, an hour there. I try and network at least once a week. And I'm also helping a couple of people find jobs right now. So I think this pay it forward is really important, and it's part of your giving back, but it's also part of the fact that you've probably been benefiting from others over time, and just weaving that into your business, personal life, I think is really critical. And
great.
It just needs to be a part of what you do.
Good stuff, Kendra. Thank you very much for sharing your story on the Riderflex podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.